Now, I want to get y'all's thoughts on this, though. Bengals running back Joe Mixon restructured his deal to stay with the Bengals. So he was originally set next season to make $10.1 million with a cap number of 12.7, so $2 extra million in incentives. But he just had to restructure his deal. So now his new deal will pay him $5.5 million in 2023, and he also took a $4.6 million pay cut for that following year. So really over the next 2 years, he's going to be short $9 million with this new deal. It's a cold world, isn't it, Brandon, for these running backs?
It definitely
cold world, no blanket.
It definitely is. I'm just going to take a deep breath because I feel like I'm raving a little hot right now. And I don't want to overheat. I've been overheating for 6 weeks. But this is another example of why these players need to do what's best for them. So there's Joe Mixon, who just took a pay cut. What's the kid's name in Dallas?
Well, speaking of Dallas, while you're thinking on that thought, it has just been reported as of 10:43 a.m. Multiple reports are saying that Cowboys running back Tony Pollard is expected to play on the $10 million franchise tag that he signed back in March. Now, it's interesting enough because Jane Slater, who works very closely covering the Cowboys, when she asked about how far both sides were from an actual extensive extension discussion, they said that they weren't that far apart. So clearly things have changed. So it is Tony Pollard going to be playing on the franchise tag as a deal with him and the Dallas Cowboys could not have been met.
And this is terrible news. Any parents out there that have your kids in football, if the coach says, "Hey, we love Johnny," or "We love little Tyrone. Tyrone's the fastest out there. He's the toughest. We want him to wear old 20 because he reminds us of Barry Sanders," or maybe it's 22 because it's Emmitt Smith. You know what you do when you look at that coach. You look at him and you say, "If you don't get the hell out my face, my son will never, ever play running back." That's what you're supposed to do because this running back position is dead. And actually, I don't understand why the Joe Mixons of the world, the Tony Pollards of the world who you just mentioned, the Saquon Barkleys of the world, the Dalvin Cooks of the world, the Jacobs of the world, why haven't there been any type of seminar, any type of powwow getting together and saying, you know what, we gotta figure this out ourselves. Mm-hmm. Because obviously the league has come together and said, we no longer appreciate the running back. We no longer value the running back. No longer. And this is why I get frustrated with players sometimes. Like, we be so scared. So scared. We're so scared to stand up and fight for our business. Isn't that business? It's not always easy. You're not always going to get along with everybody. Sometimes you got to walk in and say, this is not fair. This is not right. Now you want me, Tony Pollard, to come in and put everything on the line. I worked my ass off to get to this point, to get a deal that's going to take care of my family for the rest of their lives. Take care of my kids. Now I can't do that. Joe Mixon. You talked about Joe Mixon. Had to restructure his deal. Joe Mixon. He finally gets in position, gets the deal. 2 years into the deal, they ask him to restructure his deal. Do you think Joe Mixon's going to be in a better position than a Ezekiel Elliott or a Dalvin Cook in a year or two from now to get a bigger deal? No. It's over. It's done.
What does this say about the owners, though? Because they have to know that that's happening. They have to know that they're devaluing that position to the point where people, like you said, are not going to tell their kids to be running backs.
Great businessmen.
Yeah, they say.
But I'm saying, is this an intentional move to eliminate the position?
It's not to eliminate the position. You got to understand that I was looking at these numbers last night a little bit. I was looking at like all the Hall of Fame running backs. If you look at this closely, we're talking about from outside of like Emmitt Smith. But you look at Barry Sanders, you look at Edge, you look at LT, you look at Fred Taylor, who's not a Hall of Famer yet, but should be a Hall of Famer. you look at all these great running backs. Right around 9, 10 is just a drop-off.
It's a hard position.
It's a hard position. It really is.
It's a passing league now.
Right.
So that's why most of the running backs you see getting paid, not obviously to the level that they were getting paid back in the day of Ezekiel Elliott and things like that, are dual threat running backs, meaning they have hands. They can also be part wide receiver, part running back.
Correct.
A traditional battering ram is just no longer the direction that the league is headed. Now, could it come full circle? Everything usually does. When will that happen? No idea. So the running backs who are more of that traditional quote unquote dying breed are having a hard time getting deals because the league is already so many light years ahead of where that position used to be dominant. And that's not to say a running back is still not an intricate part of the offense. It is. You still need to be able to run the ball. That's common sense. But you're not going to invest a bunch of money into a position that, like Brandon said, drops off in a few years compared to your other positions, especially if that running back cannot also be a wide receiver. And it's unfortunate, but it's been headed in that direction for a few seasons now.
A long time. But actually, I do want to say this. They do deserve the one deal, right? They do deserve year 4, year 5, like where Saquon Barkley's at.
Big one.
Saquon Barkley deserves his deal. What made that team? Well, I'm picking on you today. What made the Giants surprise us last year?
Their running game.
Oh, dang. Ashley wanted to jump in there. It wasn't even for Ashley, but great job, Ashley.
Sorry.
Yes, Ashley's right. Ding, ding, ding. Ashley is right. Bro, they were number 3, Woo. The Giants' running game was 3 in the league. Who led the running game? Saquon Barkley. So now this man.
And you know who's number 2?
Daniel
Jones.
Lamar Jackson.
No, I meant in the Giants.
The Ravens.
It was literally like that was their running back tandem. Their 1-2 punch. It was Saquon Barkley
Tony Pollard.
and Danny Dimes. It was actually very sad.
Brandon Marshall here. Ashley, Nicole Moss, Corey in the cut, Woo Out West, BC in the booth. Sirius XM for all of our listeners. You can always go back and listen to past shows. Faction Talk Channel 103.
Well, on the topic of Saquon, I mean, listen, the date is approaching. What's today's
today?
It's today.
Today.
Okay, so
The
today
17th.
at 4. We've been speaking about Saquon. I got the dates because I thought it was the 16th. Here we go. We've been talking about this for a while, and now the date is finally here. Obviously, and one of the things that I said on this show a few times was that the Giants are going to play chicken with Saquon. And if you guys aren't familiar with the game of chicken, basically it's like when 2 cars are coming at each other full speed to see which one turns out of the way first. Yeah. And if we don't, we're both going to crash into each other. So it's basically a game of will. Who has the bigger cojones, if you will, right? Okay? So the Giants were never going to budge because they knew the deadline was in their favor. One way or another, we're going to get you, Saquon. Yeah. So it's going to be either on your terms or it's going to be on my terms. But I'm in the driver's seat of making sure it's on my terms. And here we are, the 17th. And we have a few hours until 4. Yep. It doesn't look like a deal is going to be reached. The franchise tag looks like a very strong possibility. So, Brandon, what do? Do you sit out?
I know. It looks
or do you take the money?
Like there might be 2 of the running backs sitting out.
So, before I even answer that question, can I ask you this question? What's the name of the game if there's only 1 car on the street? You have Saquon Barkley, then you have the Giants just sitting there like, we ain't playing this shit. Like, you just driving up and down by yourself.
That's just driving practice, I guess. I don't know what that is.
That's what's happening. Yeah. The Giants was like, they're like savages. Ashley, I think that Saquon signs the deal that's on the table. I think there is a long-term deal. If you call it a long-term deal, maybe a 3-4 year deal that's out there. When I talked to Saquon at the charity at Devontae's
softball game.
Yeah, Smith's charity softball game, it seemed like he understood the market, knew he wasn't going to get his true value, but still was fighting with them over some pennies. Okay? And so I think that deal still sits on the table, and I think he takes that deal by 4 o'clock.
Well, there was the report that he was offered, what was it, $13 million a year? And he said cap. We were trying to defer whether that meant cap, that was the number, or cap that he was offered a deal at all.
Yeah.
I tend to believe that he was offered a deal at all, because the way that he has been speaking about this situation for these past few weeks, he sounds like a player who's very much aware of where the market is right now. And he's not trying to be like, get astronomically more than what the market is dictating. But he also sounds like somebody who just wants to get paid what they're worth. I have a hard time believing that someone who has that insight would call cap on $13 million. Right. It sounds to me like a deal was never offered.
Right.
So what deal are you referring to that's on the table? The franchise tag?
Well, I mean, I don't know how to be an insider, so I would just not say too much at all. But no, there was reports that there was a deal offered last year.
Okay.
Right? And that same deal,
higher or lower than 13 a year?
I don't know the numbers. But because he's right now offered the non-exclusive, which is at 10, right?
Yeah, 10.1.
And there was a report that the Giants offered him 13, an actual deal.
Well, I think that's kind of true, because I think they offered him 13. That was the deal from a year ago.
Same one,
but
right?
then they rescinded that one. Remember, they took a deal back, and then they gave him a lower deal. That's why I'm calling the Giant savages, and I'm saying, what is the name of the game when there's only one car instead of 2 cars? You got chicken here. What is it called when the Giants say, you know what, we're removing ourselves from this? And that's why I was saying a couple of weeks ago, if I'm Saquon, I don't even know I guess I'm just different, man. I wouldn't be able to go back in that locker room. For my homies, yeah, we cool. But again, at the end of the day, I'll meet y'all after the season in Paris. Meet y'all in Miami. We can all go in on a yacht. But I'm going to go over here.
I'm in Miami.
You know what I'm saying? I got to go take care of Z, Ziggy, and Zoe. You feel me? You want me to come back in your organization and play for you? No respect. It's how you did it.
Yeah.
And I know it's business. And I know other owners would probably have done it. But I also know that there's an owner out there right now. And this is for certain. There was the Giants won't trade him. But there's at least 2 teams that would trade for Saquon and give him a better deal than the Giants. And that's what would piss me off every day I would walk into that locker room, knowing that another team valued me more than the team that drafted me and the team that I helped get back into the playoffs.
Yeah.
So
I think that's what sucks as a fan, is you saw that happen, and now your own team is now choosing to put him to the wayside. So,
sheesh. All right, before we move on real quick, if Saquon signs today, what do you think he signs for a year?
Well, that non-exclusive, I think Ashley talked about the game of chicken. I think it's going to be somewhere around 10 to 11 million a year.
We shall see.